Welcome in to the Arrowhead Pride Rapid Reaction Show. I am Stephen Serda, not joined this week by my normal co-host, Rocky Magana. I know he would love to be here, but
sorry,
it's
Rocky.
Thursday. We normally do show and BK for you guys on Friday.
We'll take this one, Rocky.
Since we had the prime time first Amazon game of the season, we decided to just kind of double dip on show and BK this week. So we're doing a show and BK post-game show rapid recap edition. So I am joined by Ron the Show Hughley, as well as Brandon Kiley. And boys, it was an ugly game. It wasn't the prettiest game from the Kansas City Chiefs, but they find a way to get it done. They win 27-24 against the Los Angeles Chargers. Your thoughts?
No, I don't like your word choice. I really don't like ugly. I don't like it. I think tough. I think tough and gritty.
Gritty's the word. Gritty's the word. That was a gritty win by the Chiefs.
I mean, you know, I can hear it ringing in my ears. I know you're not used to this, BK, but I can hear it ringing in my ears with Bill Self at one of those tournament games saying, hey, sometimes you don't have your best. Sometimes you don't play your best, but you got to survive and advance. And tonight, like we gotta stop right here and understand. We'll get into a lot of stuff. I want to say the Chiefs played a C game. I'll say B- because the defense was more than what I thought they could be, but they played a B- C+ game tonight against what many people believe are real contenders in the AFC. I hear some people believing this team is going to win the division. I work with people who've picked the Chargers to win the division, and they beat them with their C game, B- game tonight. That is not anywhere near where the Chiefs can play. And I mean, that's impressive when you look and see what the Chiefs can do and who they can beat playing not at their A game level. That's impressive.
It felt a lot like last year's Giants game, but instead of doing it against the Giants, you did this against the Chargers. Like that's kind of the vibe that game gave off. And you leave it and you're like, man, I don't know how they won that game, but at the end of the year, we're going to look back and say that it was super important that they won that game. And I think we've got to start with the defense, guys, because I mean, your 7th round rookie corner that wouldn't have been playing if not for an injury won you that football game. I saw just a little bit ago. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and he was getting torched tonight at times, and then coming through and stepping up and not getting down and making a Malcolm Butler-esque play at the end of that game, except it wasn't the Super Bowl. That was something else.
ESPN tweeted this out. Justin Herbert's pick 6 was the only one this century to occur in the red zone in the 4th quarter of a tie game. What you just witnessed is something that has not happened in the NFL in the last 22 years. And it was your rookie 7th round corner who made the play in the biggest possible spot. I thought he was huge. I thought the crowd played a significant factor in that game. And your defense as a whole, especially that defensive line in the 4th quarter, were able to come up with just enough stops against what I think is one of the 3 or 4 best offenses in the NFL. So credit where it's due. That defense is what allowed you to have an opportunity to win that game.
So Kramer, and we've got the Jalen Watson pick 6. So let's go ahead and throw that.
Yeah, I want to see that.
Because it was filthy. And we've talked about Jalen Watson a ton because, going into training camp, we really thought Joshua Williams was going to carve out a role for himself in the secondary. And we kept seeing Jalen Watson mixing in with the ones and getting a lot of reps and even got some playing time last week. And then Trent McDuffie goes on IR this week and he's going to be out for a while. Hopefully he's back by that week 6 contest against the Bills, because what we saw from McDuffie in week 1 was very good. So we hope he can be a playmaker for that secondary. But this kid, Jalen Watson, is put in an impossible situation, having to start on a short week as a 7th round rookie on prime time against the team that we think is a Super Bowl contender, in my opinion, in the Los Angeles Chargers. And yeah, it was rough, but what do you expect from a 7th round rookie cornerback? For him to go make that play, it was incredible. I was so happy that it was him who did it and pulled it off, because it was the game sealing play. It was the thing that totally changed the tide of the game from what I believe is a very ugly first half for the Chiefs.
And Ron, I am going to disagree with you a little bit. Like, I understand that he was giving up receptions. I think there's, 3 or 4 wide receivers in the NFL that play the way that Mike Williams does. Like, he was posterizing him. It was good coverage, and that is one of the very few guys that can come up with those types of receptions. And would you like him to play a little bit tighter? Sure. But I thought overall, the Chiefs, I don't know that I would say that Rashad Fenton had great coverage all night long, but otherwise, I think most of the guys had pretty good coverage for the most part. And Mike Williams just had a really great game once again.
Yeah, it just meaning that, they were picking on him and they were going to him, and it was clear I'm just not going to get beat deep, and he was playing off a lot of cushion. I'm just saying, from that, your first game like that, and you're getting picked on that way, and to come back in that manner, like, that's like to keep your head up. That's as I sip on this Merlot, I got to be honest. I thought in this game that when you look at what Khalil Mack and what Bosa can do, and what they brought in the game last week against the Raiders, and how they changed that game a lot with pressure. And then you think, boy, they got Derwin James also out there, who was nasty. I mean, him and Willie Gay were all around the field on both teams. J.C. Jackson, you saw he was going to be there. Like, I thought, boy, this night could potentially be about the Chargers defense and how they can kind of disrupt things and stop the Chiefs from doing what they want to do. And I think for the most part, they probably did. But we leave the game understanding that this was not about the Chargers defense. It was about, surprisingly, the Chiefs defense. And it was about the Chiefs defense making the play that kind of took the game and changed the game. It was about the Chiefs defense all night long getting stops on third down, except for that last drive. But all night long getting stops on third down. They were 4 for 12 well into the fourth quarter of that game and getting off the field. And Brendan Staley lost his balls tonight, so he wasn't going for fourth downs, which I think he messed up and should have. Like, you're going to do it, go and do it, especially tonight, because Mike Williams just had a matchup. He could get 2 yards, it seemed like, anytime he wanted to. But this defense came up with stops. Those stops in the middle of the third quarter, where Chris Jones came alive and gets the sack back there, and that was huge. This game, we'll get to Mahomes and how absurd he is. He's absolutely ridiculous. But tonight was about the Chiefs defense, holding this offense to 17 points basically throughout 4 quarters until they're in 2 minutes. Like, that's that. So, I didn't see that coming.
And first off, that final drive, that Joshua Palmer touchdown, I needed that. Thank you very much.
Those of you who were betting the over at 54.5 didn't have a chance.
Yeah. No, that part was ugly. Those ones did not hit, but that Joshua Palmer touchdown came up clutch for me. But so I was really frustrated with the defense in the first half, though, because BK brought up Mike Williams, and Mike Williams was just dominant. Like, there wasn't a Chiefs cornerback on the field that could cover Mike Williams. And it's not because Mike Williams was out there burning you or anything. He's just bigger and stronger than every DB that the Chiefs had on the field. And he was totally physically dominating them. And I was really frustrated because it seemed like every single series the Chargers had the ball, it was 3rd and short, 4th and short, 3rd and short, 4th and short. They couldn't seem to just get them off the field and get them in a long down and distance. And I was frustrated with them. But in the second half, we saw Chris Jones have a really quiet first half where the Chargers offensive line was actually playing really, really well. And Chris Jones was absolutely dominant in the second half. Like, the way we saw Mahomes kind of get frustrated and say, screw it, I'm just going to go make a play. Chris Jones was doing that the entirety of the second half on the defensive line.
I mean, you look at what they did in the second half, starting in their second possession, talking about the Chargers, punt on a 3-and-out, punt on a 3-and-out, interception, touchdown. That's the Jalen Watson pick 6, punt on a 3-and-out, 6 plays, 24 yards, punt. And then finally that final drive that they had there to bring it within 3. I mean, your defense went out there and won you that game, not only by like forcing all of the punts, but literally by scoring you the game-winning touchdown. Like, that's remarkable, man. And it's something that we were hopeful that this defense would be able to do that for you when you needed them to, because we knew there would be times this year where, listen, you don't have Tyreek Hill to go to right now. And there were moments in that game where I was like, man, they could really use Tyreek in this spot, because you just needed a guy to go out there and get you some yards and get you some separation, because the Chiefs receivers were not separating at all tonight. That Chargers defense is pretty damn good, man. So not having that, they redistributed the money around, and you needed your defense to be able to come through with some big stops. And they did it when they needed it the most. Ron, you've been talking all offseason about how this is the year that Chris Jones needs to step up. He needs to be the alpha on that defensive line. The first half, that dude was super quiet. But when you got into the moments where it really mattered and you needed a play, Chris Jones was the guy that was making it.
Yeah, the third down is just as impressive, right? I know he can rush the passer, especially when they have a backup center in there, which I thought, boy, when they didn't start the second half with Lindsey, I said, well, he's got to take advantage of this. Like, Chris Jones, you got to make some hay with this. But the third down and 2, where he just destroyed. He was held and they didn't call it. Just destroyed the guard and made the play, and they couldn't go for it. I mean, he it was a loss of 1. That was as impressive, because we know Chris can just, be hit or miss in the run game. And that was big for him there, man. So, I mean, he was big. Your star came up, because I'm not going to lie, man. We'll get to this probably on next Thursday. But, man, sometimes, man, when he's not going, that pass rush is concerning. It's concerning. Now, they got some hits late, obviously, and then Mike Dana out here really trying to change the entire division, out here breaking ribs tonight on Justin Herbert, it looks like. But, that is a concern, man. When Chris Jones isn't going, there were times where you're like, my God, if Herbert's going to get this much time, like, this is going to be a long night. But they pulled it together in the second half.
Yeah, it was an impressive defensive performance, like when it came down to the second half. And I think we saw that once Chris Jones just started dominating, it made everybody else better. You see George Karlaftis putting pressure on Justin Herbert. You see Mike Dana putting pressure on Justin Herbert. And I do think that they were playing it a little bit safer in the first half and trying to make sure they didn't get exposed deep or something. And some of that's on the Chargers offense. Like, I'm at the point with Joe Lombardi where I just straight up think he's a bad offensive coordinator. Like, the way that they were playing it safe against, I think if the Chargers wanted to just totally extend the field and go after the Chiefs in the first half, I think we'd be talking about a very different game right now. Like, that's how bad it was in the first half for the offense and the defense, in my opinion. But the Chargers didn't do that. They played it safe. And then in the second half, this defense was like, all right, we've had enough of this. We're in prime time. We're at home. It's week 2. Like, we're getting ready to turn it on. So I think all around now, back-to-back weeks, you got to feel really good about the Chiefs defense. Like, overall, you just have to feel good about the young guys and the impact that they're having and what we've seen so far from Chris Jones, because we've talked about it a ton on this podcast specifically. Like, we need him to be that Aaron Donald-esque type of player that we always know that he can be, but that sometimes disappears. And we're only 2 weeks into the season, but so far Chris Jones has made sure that he's going to make noise this year. And that's what you need from him every single week.
Fellas, didn't it feel like tonight your arguably two of your top guys, your stars, just at times picked it up and put their side of the ball on their back? We've talked about Chris Jones. He is the top guy. And when he plays well is when the defense is at its best, right? Like, I love Willie Gay. He was great tonight. I love Snead. He's really good. But it's Chris Jones. And on the offensive side of the ball, it's Patrick Mahomes. And Patrick Mahomes, like Chris Jones, I think Serda, you alluded to it, just said F it a couple of times and just had to go out and make plays, right? Like, that offense wasn't great tonight, but Patrick Mahomes went out there and showed why he may be the best player in this game. He probably should be an MVP every year, and we're seeing it more tonight because they weren't going to let Kelce beat him, and there was protection issues at times. But a couple of times, fellas, Patrick Mahomes, like Chris Jones, just went out there and made plays. And I'm telling you, that first touchdown pass, that was the stupidest thing I've seen Patrick. That's one of the dumbest things I've ever seen Patrick do. And I mean dumbest in the best way possible. I am sitting here with my son saying, all right, got outside, just throw this thing away. And he just saw something I ain't see. And I'm just like, you got to be kidding me. I just got up and stood there with my mouth closed. I couldn't. We were texting back and forth. I mean, I was like Ricky Bobby. I just couldn't use my hands. I didn't know what the hell. I didn't know what the hell that was in my life. But that was one of the moments where he just put his team on his back and made a play.
It felt kind of almost like it's different because he didn't go sideline to sideline and reverse course, but it was similar to that 49ers touchdown from his rookie season or his first year as a starter. It had that kind of a vibe where you're like, there's maybe 3 people in the history of the game that make that play, not just like currently eligible to play, but ever that have played the position the way that he did tonight. And you're right. I think this was one of those games where it was really defined by like 5 plays. And sometimes that's what it ends up taking, is whether it be some kind of an explosive play offensively or a big play that you make in a big spot defensively. It was the McKinnon touchdown that you just broke down, Ron. It was the throw over the top to Watson, which was incredible. A couple of those plays by Chris Jones, the pick 6 by Watson, and then that big run at the end by Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Like you add all of that stuff up, it's kind of what defined the game. And the rest of it was just, it came and it went. And as you mentioned at the very beginning, Ron, you said it was probably a C, maybe a B- type of a game. I think you could even go below that. Like if you wanted to give them a C- type of an effort tonight, I think that's fine. They just didn't have their best stuff. Like it was like Zach Greinke in his prime, Ron. I know, Serda, this is going to go over your head, but there were times where he didn't have his best stuff.
He is.
No, I know you know who he is. You don't know what his stuff is, though. Go ahead.
He didn't have his best stuff. He'd go out there, he'd battle through, and you knew it. Like from the first inning, there was more traffic than you normally expect, and he would bear down, and he would find a way to get through like 7 innings, give up 1 earned run, and he gave you a chance to win in the end. That's what Mahomes was tonight. He didn't have his best stuff. The pass rush was clearly frustrating him. That pass rush from the Chargers is a problem, dude.
It pissed him off. He almost just threw a pick out of frustration.
Derwin James is a problem. And when he's healthy, that dude is a nightmare for opposing offenses because they can use him in so many different ways. And in the end, he just needed to make a couple of them. He got through without his best stuff, and he found a way to get the Chiefs the win.
So after tonight's performance, and I do think that Andy Reid was playing it safe because he knows that their offensive line, especially on the right side against a pass rush like this, is a problem. And so we saw them putting pressure on Mahomes all night. And so it was just try to get rid of the ball. Let's run it early. Let's play conservative, which is frustrating to see when you have Patrick Mahomes. I understand that. That's why I was frustrated with the offense in the first half. But Clyde Edwards-Helaire in back-to-back weeks
Come on now.
has been heavily involved in the passing game, made plays in the passing game, and looked good while doing it. Broke off an explosive 52-yard run tonight, which is
longest rush of his career.
Yeah.
How many rushes did he have over 20 yards, BK? How many rushes did he have over 20 yards?
Do I need to backtrack this? No way the Chiefs are picking up Clyde's 5th-year option?
No,
because
we don't have to get that aggressive. We don't have to get that aggressive.
I mean, through 2 games, he looks really, really good. Like I think I've been more impressed with Clyde through 2 weeks than anyone in the offense, I think.
We've asked where is the new math going to come from with Tyreek out? And it is clear he in the backfield has been that, right? That the new math, they're running it a lot more than they have, and they're using him out of the backfield a lot more. He finally looks like the guy from LSU.
Yep.
Like at LSU, he was so low to the ground, you never got him down on the first tackle. All right, the first contact, he always bounced off of it. And he's doing that. That catch he had over the middle where he broke a tackle right at the catch and then runs it down. Like those are big plays. That's one missed tackle and bam, it's another 10, 15 yards. So he was really, really, really good tonight. You don't have to get that aggressive on that option. I know my man, listen, I know you didn't want to fumble, but good God almighty, man. Come on now. I mean, you slowed yourself down about 10 miles an hour. He may have scored if he was thinking about that. But I've never. That's Tiki Barber like, just holding that thing in.
It was Petey from Remember the Titans. He's like, I'm not fumbling here. It was amazing. It was amazing.
No, but I mean, yeah, that's where like I said we wonder where the new math comes from, and that's it. Extra more use of other tight ends and the backside of the backfield are clearly different things that they're using that they didn't use in the past.
I think he's replacing some of that underneath stuff. Like we've been asking all offseason, what are they going to do to replace the targets from Tyreek Hill? And the answer is like there is no one individual that is going to replace those targets because he did so many different things. And I've seen some of this stuff. And listen, man, I'm not trying to get on a soapbox or anything, but from Chiefs fans where they say like stuff about Tyreek and how he's like overvalued now or all. No, Tyreek Hill is incredible. He's a future Hall of Famer. And we shouldn't be like trying to diminish what he is as a player just because he's no longer a Chief. That guy's incredible. And trying to replace him is really hard because he did things in the red zone. He did stuff where it was an RPO and you just attached him as the slant guy and then he's able to go off for 50 yards after the catch. He's a deep threat. Like everything that you needed a wide receiver to do, he could do it. And it didn't matter if he was small, big, whatever. You're going to need Clyde Edwards-Helaire to take some of that run after catch stuff. You're going to need Jody Fortson to take over some of his role in the red zone. By the way, throw to Jody Fortson tonight. Pat, I know you're not used to having a big target like that. That's got to be up. It's got to be up back corner of the end zone.
The way Herbert was throwing the ball to Mike Williams. That's how
exactly. Every time. What was that?
And he'll get there. He'll get there. But like Justin Watson going over the top, you're going to need something from him. You're going to need Juju to take some of those across the middle types of routes. Like it's going to be a team effort from like 5 different guys to piece things together of what Tyreek used to do. And that's what they wanted all along. That had to be the formula. And we're starting to see at a very minimum, to your point, Serda, Clyde is capable of doing some of that stuff. And prior to this season, prior to these 2 games, I didn't know if that was the case. He also had some really good reps tonight in pass pro. So credit to him. He played an awesome game tonight against the Chargers.
Of course, BK is going to break down the pass protections.
Hey, he's got to do that if he wants to be in there on the third down.
I know.
I think that's been the biggest thing holding him back is the pass protection.
Really? Is it? I just thought that was the lack of anything explosive that he could do. I thought that was maybe the main.
That too. That was the main going thing. Into the season, I was like, he's just not explosive. Like that's just not a thing he can do in the NFL.
I'm not going to let you guys go one more step because finally you can come up about Clyde. But let me tell you what, somebody who has never been one that you would think is tough, somebody was never one you would think would go and get the gritty yards and the gritty plays, Mecole Hardman tonight was tough. He came off the field. I thought he was done. He ran that one route and Pat, was not going to help him. Got a bad ankle, and Pat's going to throw this thing behind him and make him have to spin all the way around to try to make that catch. He came right off the field. I remember tweeting, Hardman looks like he's done. And then he comes in, and what have you been saying? The reason why, and it's been very fair. Now, I'm going to put that out. The reason why Mecole Hardman has to be something that's not a number 2 receiver is because he would not go in the middle of the field and go get those tough catches in the middle of the field the way that Sammy Watkins would do. And in this game, there was a huge 3rd down and 10, and he comes back in the game after the injury, and he gets in there and is able to create enough space, and he makes a huge catch, and it wasn't a well-thrown ball. It was low. He had to go down and get it. And Lord knows we've seen Mecole Hardman drop the ball thrown right to him in a way. And he went down there and made that tough catch, made a couple of other catches as well in this game, tight inside. That was tough. One, for him to come through with the injury and still come back and play and be effective. That was big. That was big for Mecole Hardman. So cheers to you, boss.
It was huge, and he almost dropped one of those passes. It was.
What are we doing here, man?
He bobbled it and caught it, and I was like, "Yes, Mecole, there you go." But I was like, "Man, that was almost a disaster because it's Mecole."
I do want to say, I think it's a little unfair what some Chiefs fans are doing with Mecole, because all I see on Twitter all night is, man, get Mecole out of there. Get Sky Moore in there. And listen, I want to see Sky Moore in there as much as anybody. Trust me, I am ready for more of the Sky Moore experience. But McCole Hardman did nothing tonight to lose opportunities. He was the least of their problems. McCole Hardman was more productive than Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who caught 2 of his 7 targets for 13 yards. McCole Hardman was more productive and got more separation tonight than Juju Smith-Schuster, who, he caught all 3 of his targets. They went for a total of 10 yards, and his longest reception went for 4 yards. That was a running back experience for him. So I understand that we have a lot of past history with McCole Hardman in this town, and the knocks against him are very fair in my mind. But this was not one of those games where he was a weak link for you. It was quite the opposite. McCole Hardman was a part of why they were still in this game, and he made big-time plays for him.
And that third down catch, like I told you guys before we got going here, that was a huge play. That was a huge play. They absolutely
I can't believe he went to him.
I think in the past, I think that's a play where maybe Mahomes doesn't look at him, or McCole just straight up drops it. Like, he doesn't make the play. And so, yes, it's a sign of growth from McCole Hardman. I would still like to see Sky Moore a little bit and see what he can do, but McCole Hardman is now a veteran in this offense. And so you expect him to make those plays, whereas in the past, he didn't make them.
In a game where the Chiefs and Andy Reid and Bieniemy and the staff went through and said, "Hey, this is not going to be a game where we're going to allow Khalil Mack and Bosa to have chances to rush the passer." They're trying to get everything out quick. Everything, like, this is a game where you're like, man, they may not have dropbacks, or have enough time to be able to get McCole down the field and use his strength in this game. So you wonder how productive he'll be. He found a way to be productive in a game in which, by the way the Chargers play, by the way, with that, the conservative game where it looked like they were keeping as many in to protect and not going out on routes, I wonder, is this what it's going to look like in all of these division games? Because all of these teams it's either Bradley Chubb and Randy Gregory, or it's Chandler Jones and the kid, Max Crosby, and they were clear from word go. From the jump, they were concerned. From the jump, they ran offense in that way to make sure that they slowed down that pass rush. So we may need to start getting used to that in these games against these teams, because all of these teams put together defenses to try to combat Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs.
It won't be quite as big of an issue over the next couple of weeks. You got Indy and Tampa, and they've got some good players on the defensive line, but not the way that the Chargers do. But after that, you got the Raiders, you got the Bills, who added Von Miller this offseason. He's going to be a nightmare. They're just going to line him up over Andrew Wiley from start to finish. There's no reason not to. And then you got one of the Bosas coming in against the 49ers. So those will be 3 tough ones right before the bye week. And yeah, Ron, it's going to be a problem for the Chiefs. They're going to have to get this thing figured out. And they've got so many tight ends that my guess is when they get Blake Bell back into the mix, because he's the guy that's the blocker. And I know that, like, BK brings up Blake Bell as an answer for the problems that are plaguing the offense right now. That's crazy. I think he could be a guy that ends up really helping in that regard. Juju is a guy that'll probably have to be kept in. I know on one of their deep shots, I can't remember, it might have been the Justin Watson play, actually. He was a guy that chipped the defensive end, gave Mahomes just enough time to be able to get that play off. That's something that we'll probably see more of over the next few weeks as well.
It's not as exciting, and I understand what they're doing. You have to protect Patrick Mahomes, and if you feel like you got liabilities on the offensive line, then you got to restructure things and do what you have to protect him. But it is impressive that we've seen through 2 games now, like, Mahomes really stay within the structure of those concepts and make it work and still be able to create explosive plays because he's such a good player. So I think that's growth from him, where we did see it tonight, and we talk about it, in that game against the Bengals last year in the playoffs, where he gets frustrated and wants to play hero ball and just make the big play. And it almost cost him tonight. But then once he settled down and got things going again, he made some throws. And then the last couple of drives of the game, he was kind of off again and kind of ugly. But I think that was just a product of the pressure that the Chargers were putting on him. So it's something you got to figure out throughout the season. But yeah, I think you're spot on. I think this is what you're going to see against these division opponents because the pass rush is just so strong across the board.
Hey, Ron, question for you. CDOT just tweeted this out. I think it's a good question. Are the Chiefs and Chargers the best rivalry going right now in the NFL? You look at the way that this back and forth has gone since Justin Herbert took over as the starting quarterback for the Chargers over the last 3 years now. Chiefs beat them in overtime 23-20 in 2020. Ended up losing the second game of that series. I believe that one, though, was without the Chiefs starters, if I'm not mistaken. Chargers beat the Chiefs in 2021 in the first game 30-24. The second one was that overtime classic where Kelsey wins on the walk-off. And then to start off this year, you just had this one, which was a 3-point game determined by a pick six. Is this the best rivalry going right now in the NFL in your mind?
I
mean, the games have all been determined by one score, basically.
I was gonna say, I think Chiefs Bills. Like
but isn't that really just one game that we're building that upon?
No, I mean they've met in games that matter. Like they've met in the playoffs the last 2 years. They've met in the AFC Championship game.
But the game before that was terrible.
The Bills beat the brakes off of them here. I just think there is, like, I'll be honest. I don't ever feel, I have not gotten to a place where I actually feel like the Chargers are actually on the same level with the Chiefs.
You don't feel that way after today?
No, I think the Chargers are really good, and I wouldn't be surprised. I just, like, right now, I watch them, and I'm thinking, like, the Chiefs did not play well, and I know they didn't have Keenan Allen, and that's something.
Or their starting center.
He came out in the second half, but like I look at this, and I'm like, I think they're really good, but like I think, like, I go in the game when they play Buffalo, and like I think, like, Buffalo can do everything to them that like that. This is a real game. They can lose. Like, it's a real game. Like legit lose more than I feel like it is with the Chargers. So I don't know, man. Like, the Chargers, they ain't been to the playoffs. Like, I know the games have been good, but like, to me, Bills Chiefs is one that I look forward to a little bit more. But I mean, it's a good question. Like, the last 4 games have been really, really crazy.
I think with this win tonight, and even it being an ugly win for the Chiefs, now I'm totally set on, like, it's Chiefs and Bills are 2 best teams atop the AFC and probably in the NFL, because the NFC just doesn't look like it's very good this season. So I think it's still Chiefs and Bills, but if Justin Herbert makes the playoffs, I think is what it's going to take for me to, like, consider that. And then maybe like another Chiefs Chargers matchup that is just like a fantastic game in the playoffs before I'll concede the Bills.
Yeah.
But before we get out of here, I do want to run through some injuries real quick. Chiefs head coach Andy Reid said at the podium after the game, defensive end Mike Dana did leave the game with a calf strain. He did not return. So we'll continue to monitor that as they have a 10-day window now in between their next game against the Indianapolis Colts. He also mentioned that wide receiver McCole Hardman was dealing with an ankle injury where we saw him leave the game, but McCole came back in. So it seems like he's going to be all right, but that's something to monitor as we move forward. And then wide receiver Justin Watson dealing with a shoulder injury. He also had an popped up on the injury report after last week's game. So it might just be kind of a nagging thing that he's dealing with right now. And we lost BK. I think his internet froze. So I think that's a good time to go ahead and get out of here. If you're listening on the podcast, please make sure that you stick around afterwards. We'll have all the post-game press conferences for you coming up. Please make sure that you follow Brandon Kiley on Twitter at BK Sports Talk. You can follow Ron at Real Ron the Show. You can follow our guy Kramer sitting in the background helping us make this thing work at Kramer Talks. I'm Stephen Serda. That's where you can find me. We'll talk to you guys next week, or